Hey guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to be trying to paint up a Dark Angels Primaris Chaplain in the Grimdark style. And this is going to be a test model for a future project where I plan on painting up this giant Lionel Johnson Primark model, which is absolutely awesome, but I first need to practice the colour scheme on something smaller. So I printed off this chaplain as I really like the model, and this will allow me to muck around with the colour scheme and find out what works and what doesn't. So let's get into it. And the first step is to prime the model, and I used Colourforge Hyrax Brown, which is a really nice dark brown, which is perfect for the Grimdark style. Next up, it was time to paint in all of the armour panels, and to do that I decided to use the Army Painter Teal Triad, and I just stippled this on using a Drybrush, starting with the darkest colour, covering all of the armour panels, and then moving on to the lighter colours, covering a progressively smaller surface area until we get to the brightest colour, where I'm really only just dry brushing on some edge highlights. And after that was complete, the armour should be looking nice and green. And after that, the next thing to do was apply the exact same technique to all of the robes and cloth, but this time using the Army Painter Warm Greys and Whites Triad. Base coating in the darkest colour, and then working my way up from there using the same stippling technique. And at this stage you just need to be careful you don't get any of the white onto the previous armour colours. And to avoid that I just switch to a much smaller brush anytime I get close to any of the armour panels. And after that was done, it was now time to block out all of the rest of the colours. Firstly by painting in the bones on the chest and face, using the Army Painter's Light Neutrals Triad. For all of the gold parts, I firstly base coated with Army Painter Rough Iron, followed by a coat of Army Painter Greedy Gold. For any silver parts, I used Army Painter Gun Metal. And once all the metallics had been applied, I gave them all a quick coat of Army Painter Dark Tone. And then for all the leathers, I just stippled on some Citadel Mornfang Brown, followed by Baylor Brown. And for the last part of blocking out all of the colours, I used the Army Painter Cool Red Triad to paint in the Purity Seal and the casing for the gun. And I'm not really sure if these parts are parchment scrolls or just part of the robe, but in any case I wanted to add some additional detail here. And to do that, I firstly added some tiny decals, which I had left over from the Leviathan box set, and just carefully slid them on, and then tried to carefully push them into the correct place. And after allowing some time for the transfers to dry, I then come in with a very fine micron tipped pen and just applied some scribbles of text underneath all of the transfers. I then decided to go in with the next brightest colour in the teal triad, just to apply some edge highlights and some dots and scratches across all of the armour panels. And this is just going to help brighten up and bring out all the details and highlights in the armour. Next up, I'm going to be applying an all-over wash with Villainy Inks Goon's Grime, and normally I just apply this by brush, but this time I wanted to try it using an airbrush. And I was pleasantly surprised, as using an airbrush does apply this in a really nice thin, even coat across the entire model, which I have to say I think I prefer in comparison to the brush method. And I just applied this undiluted over 2 or 3 coats. And then after allowing that 15 minutes to dry, I then come in with a Q-tip and or makeup sponge, which has one end slightly dampened in some white spirits, and I use this to dab on to all of the raised areas on the model, and this helps to reactivate the enamel wash. I then go in with the dry tip and just remove the wash from all of these areas. And once I was happy with that, I then decided to go in and apply some staining effects to all of the robes and cloth. And to do that, I firstly went in and applied some dirty down rust to some of these areas, which I know technically gives more of a rusty looking effect, but I have used this quite a bit in the past and have noticed that you can get quite a nice orangey yellow staining effect if you feather it quite heavily with some water after applying it to the area, which is what I'm going to do next. So I just take some water and dab it on and around the rust effect on the cloth and spread it out over a larger area, wicking off all of the excess onto a paper towel. I then go in with some small amounts of Villainy inks, Goon's Grime, Carrion Crimson and Colia Green, and just go around and very lightly dab this on to random areas on the cloak. And this just helps add a little bit more colour variation. And the last part of the process is to add the same rust effects to the rest of the armour panels. Only difference being that I'm going to be feathering it slightly less aggressively. That way it's keeping more of that rusty feel in these areas. And after allowing everything to dry, I then applied some matte varnish to some of the more glossy areas. I then got the model ready for basing. And all in all, I'm fairly happy with the way it turned out. It's probably one of the better Grimdark models that I've painted. And the only thing I would possibly change in my next model would be to come up with a better yellowy orange staining for the cloak that doesn't flirt with looking like actual rust. But apart from that, for a test model, I think it turned out pretty good. But let me know what you think in the comments down below, and if there's anything else that you would change. Next week I'm going to be going on holiday, so I'm going to be taking a little bit of a break from painting. But when I'm back, I'm going to start work on some larger scale Forge World type models. So don't forget to subscribe for those future videos, and I'll see you in the next one.